You have a goal. After this, and this, you'll go on to this. At Clark Summit University, you'll get ready for the career God has designed for you. You'll prepare here, and even here. Because at CSU, Christ-centered career readiness drives every aspect of your education experience. From classes and chapel, to leadership development and hands-on internships, practicums, and on-campus employment. Here at CSU, you'll bolster your resume surrounded by people who truly care about your heart for Christ and your future career. Choose from 11 online programs or more than 40 on-campus majors. You can reach your goal, and we'll help you get there.
Hey, good morning, and welcome back. It's good to have everybody back. Donald, my guy. There we go. It's good to have my guys back on the campus. Hey, we're going to talk about Christ-centered career ready this morning, and we're going to frame out what's going to happen over the next few weeks, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. I want to give you a couple of housekeeping announcements first. Our new Director of Security, James Wheeler. Yes. James is sitting back there, and he is doing vehicle registration. So here's what we're doing. If you sign up your vehicle, if you register your vehicle this week, you're going to get a discount. We're going to call it the pre-registration discount, okay? And so that's $50. After Friday, after tomorrow, it's going to go up to the early bird rate of $60. So next week, if you register your vehicle, it's $60. And if you register your vehicle after the 6th of September, which is next Friday, it goes up to $120. Woo! So you guys know when I want you to register your vehicles, right? Like today, tomorrow, all right? So James will be set up after chapel today, and then he'll be set up tomorrow before and after chapel. You can also go up to his office, which is up in OSD, in the back where Fred Deffendorf's office is as well. And so you can catch him there, and then he'll be in chapel next week as well. All right? And if anybody has any questions about the vehicle registration or you have some kind of extenuating circumstance, please see James about that. And then another reminder that campus speed limit is 15 miles an hour. All right? 15. I know that's hard. I understand. 15 miles an hour. So we're starting another year. Was that funny, Hope? Wait, I got other ones for you. Nothing, I just want you to laugh. All right, we're at the start of another year, which is exciting. So for my two favorite times of the year are when students get here and when they leave. All right? So it's interesting. This time of the year is so interesting, especially as an RD. Now, if you guys know where I'm at now, I'm in Schaefer, and so I'm kind of like a fake RD right now. I have like grad school students, and I have 27-year-olds, right? Like Meshach, right? And so I have a bunch of guys. Yes, my boys right back there. So I have some older guys who are doing undergrad and grad and seminary and stuff like that. So I'm kind of like an imitation RD right now. But for years, I was a real RD. And so this was a funny time of the year because the parents would come with the students, and they'd ask me questions like, what do you do here? And I'd be like, and even now I kind of answer, I'm like, I do a little bit of everything, right? And somebody asked me the other day, hey, what do you do here? And I'm like, well, I oversee cleaning. And then somebody else asked me, hey, what do you do here? And I'm like, I'm an RD. And, well, and it's really funny because like when the parents come and they're like, so you're an RD, and it's, especially when I was in Bancroft or Kristen, they'd say, so you're an RD, so do you have a family? And I'm like, yeah, I have a family. And they're like, does your family live with you? I'm like, no, actually I set up shop here and then I travel back and forth between my other house. So you live in the dorm with the guys? Yes, I live in the dorm with the guys. I live in these 2 suites over here. It's half a floor. And your family lives there too? Yep, my family lives there too. Where do you guys live in the summer? I'm like, oh, that's easy. I have a lake house in the Adirondacks. Where do you think I live in the summer? Yeah. What do you do in the summer? The same thing I do now. So it's interesting, and I have some fun with that once in a while. But really, people want to know what I do, but I really would wish people ask me why I do what I do. I wish they came and they said, hey, why do you live in a dorm with a bunch of dudes? You know, they come and they're like, hey, this is a very peculiar smell in this dorm. And I'm like, yeah, well, this is the smell of soccer season, and then on Tuesday nights, it's the smell of Taco Tuesday, and then on, I don't know if that's a woo-woo. I didn't mean the smell of the tacos cooking. But I wish people asked me why. Why do you do what you do? I wish they asked me the motivation. What's in your heart? Why do you spend time with college students? Why do you decide to live on this campus? Why do you invest all your time here? How come you live in the center of chaos? That's what I wish people would ask me, because I don't have to mess around with those answers. I can just speak from my heart. Why do I do what I do? Because of the grace of God in my life. That's why. Because I believe in the sufficiency and effectiveness of God's word. I believe in the supernatural work of the gospel in the lives of people. I believe that God has called me into ministry. And people would say, well, this is ministry. And I say, yeah, this is ministry. Like, if you understood what we do here, you would understand how this is ministry. I have preached and spoken and shared the gospel more times in this setting than I ever have, I think, as a pastor in the 7 years that I was in pastoral ministry. I preach and speak and refer to the gospel on a daily basis here. And so, yes, I have a gospel ministry. And I believe that this stage of life, not my stage of life, because I'm old and decrepit, your stage of life, I believe that your stage of life is one of the most interesting and greatest periods of life. I think that you guys are at your most teachable and moldable and pliable stage that you'll ever be in. If you think about it, many of you are closer to marriage and kids than you were to 8th grade. Does that make sense? That means that marriage and kids are closer in years than 8th grade was. That's scary. But we see a transformation over these years. And one of the transformations that I think I have seen as an RD and somebody involved is that when the freshmen come in, and I don't think any of the freshmen are here, so I could say that because they're in a different group today. When the freshmen come in, they're crazy, immature, and everything's fun, right? Typically, right? But then what you see is when they come back as sophomores, there's something crazy and freakish that happens in the lives of these kids. When they come back, they're more mature. And I think that the summer coming out of their freshman year, there's some kind of maturation process that happens that when they come back, they're a little bit more mature than they were the year before. And then the real fun of teaching and discipleship begins. I believe that students want to be challenged to grow. I don't believe that students just come here and don't want to be invested in. I think that you guys want to be invested in. And I firmly believe that students will rise to the challenge when given clear expectations and consistent accountability. I believe that, and our staff believes that, and our faculty believes that. And so how do we engage students for this growth? Well, it's a complementary approach between academics and student development. So I work in student development and oversee the student development aspect, and Dr. Higley oversees the academic aspect, and together we partner in what we call Christ-centered and career-ready. And so from an academic perspective, there are programs and classes that are taught through the Christian worldview. You're learning how to interpret this stuff through the lens of the Bible. Your professors and faculty do not believe that vocational ministry is just as a pastoral or youth pastoral. but they believe that every vocation is ministry, and they're training you for such. And we understand in this day and age that we cannot get our missionaries into all areas of the world without some kind of other occupation. And so we're training people to be business majors in other areas of occupation so they can get into areas that are restricted so that we can bring the gospel to areas of the world that we cannot reach anymore. When you look at student surveys, as I have last year, regarding their personal growth, they're going to say that a faculty member had the most impact. And that's because our faculty are not just concerned about the academics. Our faculty are unique. And I think one of the things that sets us apart from other places is that our faculty absolutely and genuinely care about you as people. And so when I look at the surveys last year, I'm flipping through and I'm thinking to myself, I wonder who the students are going to identify as influential in their lives for personal and spiritual growth. And as I'm flipping through, I'm seeing faculty members. And that tells me, as I'm surveying this, that our faculty are having a very specific work and a very effective work in the lives of our students. I'm going to tell you one name I see over and over in those surveys, Dwight Peterson. I'm looking, Dwight Peterson, Dwight Peterson, Dwight Peterson, Dwight Peterson. And I'm like, man, I wonder if Dwight Peterson understands the significance of his ministry in the lives of these students. Then you have the student development perspective. And we look at all areas, all types, all platforms for student growth. We're looking at things like how can we use this area, right, or this group, or this setting to advance the growth of our students to become Christ-centered and career-ready. We have areas such as athletics, student activities, student leadership council, even our residence hall program that we are specifically and intentionally using for the growth of students. And then on top of that, we have our student employment program that we call career readiness. And so what do we do in OSD? We prepare Christ-centered, career-ready graduates through experience-based learning opportunities. So we're looking to put you into a hands-on, practical way to grow into becoming career-ready. Back in 2014, I moved into the Office of Student Development as coordinator of discipleship. I came in from the maintenance department. I had come back to CSU after 7 years in ministry. I came back in 2011. The only job I could find was in maintenance, so I took that job. I worked in maintenance for a couple of years. I spent 2.5 years in this place, building this place. I call this my Baptist purgatory. The Lord sanctified me as I worked here, and then finally, my heart's desire had always been to work with students. When I was here the first time doing my undergrad work, I worked in student development. I managed the underground cafe. I had all sorts of contact and ministry with students. When I went into the maintenance world, for those periods, those 3 years, I didn't have a lot of student contact. And so when the opportunity came to go into student development, man, I jumped all over that, coordinator of discipleship programs. And so people started to ask me, hey, Frank, what kind of Bible studies are you going to do with the students? What kind of things, groups, organizations are you going to do? And it wasn't sitting well with me to just say we're going to do something like that. My boss and I were sitting down and been brainstorming through this, and we were thinking about how do we make this happen? How do we take what we're doing and how do we think outside the box and prepare students for what we're envisioning? And so we came up with this idea of why don't we take students, why don't we give them even more jobs on campus? Why don't we start a program that actually helps them to develop in career readiness? Why are we just giving our students a paycheck? Why don't we take that job, give them a paycheck, and actually pay them to be discipled? And that's the way we look at our student employment program, is that we're paying you to be discipled and mentored into Christ-centered career ready. I had people tell me that I was crazy. So coming from the facilities department and into OSD, back then the facilities department oversaw custodial. So all the buildings on campus were cleaned by one of our custodial or facilities members. Some of them were part-time, some of them were full-time. So when I came into OSD, I knew that my boss at the time in the facilities department didn't like the custodial aspect, didn't like to oversee the custodial aspect, really wanted nothing to do with the custodial aspect. So I made a pitch and I said, why don't we take the custodial out of maintenance, out of facilities, and why don't we do it with all students? And people looked at me and said, you're crazy. It'll never happen. Students aren't reliable. Students aren't dependable. Students don't have the capability. And I said, you're wrong. Because one of the things I believe is that students will rise to the occasion when they have clear expectations and when they have consistent accountability. And so we transitioned this entire campus to student custodial. Every building on this campus is cleaned by a student. Now, quite honestly, the first year or so was very, very rough. It was hard. Matter of fact, I'll be honest, there was a point in time where I was considering going to my boss and saying, hey, we got to scrap this because it's not working. But we hung in there, we were diligent, we were faithful, we continued to believe in the mission, continued to believe in students, and it was a matter of just getting the right students in there who understood the vision. And once we got the right students in as leaders who understood the vision, things changed. You started having student team leaders who were going out and recruiting other students for custodial work. You had student team leaders who were representing the vision of the program. And so here we are, how many years later, and we have everything in this entire place cleaned by students. We've expanded. We've moved from custodial to other areas, and even though there might have been employment there, we brought some strategy and intentionality. We brought assessments, we brought a structure, and we brought that stuff into other areas, and we continue to look for ways to do that even today. So we're continuing in our own department to do that, and we're working with other departments to continue to bring that career readiness through experiential learning onto this campus in ways that we haven't experienced before. So we have all sorts of people who work for the school who are involved in some form of our student employment program. So I want to do this with you real quickly, just so you can get an idea. If you work student custodial, can you stand? Student custodial. If you work student custodial, stand up for me. Okay, if you work rec membership services, stand up. Stay standing, stay standing. So I want to show you something. Thank you, Hope. All right, if you work security, can you stand? Security is now directed by James Wheeler, who was in this very position the past 2 years as a student worker. Let me tell you something about security. I think that our security program is at the peak or the zenith that it has been in years. We have good student workers working security. Matter of fact, Courtney Brown, Declan Decker last year, brought our security department to the point it is today. If you work in the Craig, stand up. All right, all one person. Thanks, Alex. This whole chapel is produced, right, by students. So our audiovisual team in the back, right? And then anybody in here for a cheer crew? Stand up. If anybody's in cheer crew, stand up. We have telecounselors. Who's a telecounselor here? Telecounselors stand. Our underground staff, are you here? Underground stand. Our facilities team, we've got 3 or 4 guys working maintenance. Are you here? Stand up. Anybody working in the library? We do have a library, yes. Yes. Some people go and find resources there. Other people, never mind. All right, so you guys can sit down. I want to give you guys an idea, and thank you, honestly. You guys make this school run. You guys make this school run. And we are not just using you. Oftentimes you'll hear people say, oh, just have a student do that. No, we don't just have students do things. We have students do things so that they have a platform to learn and grow. And so I want to thank you for what you do here. I want to thank you for your investment in this place. And we hope that as you are engaged in this stuff, that you are going to become more Christ-centered and career-ready. We're confident that if you can take the stuff you're learning in the classroom and then take advantage of the stuff that we're doing here from a student employment perspective and put that together, I thoroughly 100% believe that if you take your resume and you compare it against a resume from somebody else at another institution and you lay them side by side, your experience is going to win you the job over the other person because you will have better training, faculty who love you, and you will have more experience through hands-on service. And I would say if you have two people, one's ours and one's somebody else's, you will get the job. Now, there's some things that we're going to talk about to continue to move in that direction, and I'll review those in a minute. But I'm confident in that. So as we prepare you to become Christ-centered career ready, we want to focus on three areas. We want to make sure that you have an understanding of a biblical philosophy of work. All right? That's for us is just presuppositional. And we don't always talk about it. Today I'm going to talk about it a little bit. We don't always talk about it, but whenever I talk about Christ-centered career ready, we have to address it presuppositionally that you're understanding that there is a biblical philosophy of work. Secondly, what we do is leadership development. And then lastly, there is a mastery of soft skills. And I'll tell you why that's important. A biblical philosophy of work. I'm going to read some passages to you. Ecclesiastes 2:24 and 25 says, "There is nothing better for a person that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment?" Ecclesiastes 3:12 and 13, "I perceive that there is nothing better for them than to be joyful and to do good as long as they live. Also that everyone should eat and drink and take pleasure in all his toil. This is God's gift to man." Ecclesiastes 3:22, "So I saw that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. Who can bring him to see what will be after him?" And so some might say, well, Frank, isn't work a result of the fall in chapter 3 in Genesis? And I'd say no, because if you go back to chapter 2 in Genesis, it says that God created a garden and he put man in it to work it. And so we understand that work, right, precedes the fall. What we find in the Genesis chapter 3 is that the gathering of food becomes harder and more difficult because of sin. So we have to have the right perspective about work, and we have to have an eternal and biblical perspective and philosophy about work. Ecclesiastes 9:7 and 10 says, "Go eat your bread with joy and drink your wine with a merry heart, for God has already approved what you do. Let your garments be always white. Let not oil be lacking on your head. Enjoy life with the wife whom you love, all the days of your vain life that he has given you under the sun, because that is your portion in life, and in your toil at which you toil under the sun. Whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. For there is no work or thought or knowledge or wisdom in Sheol to which you are going." And so the idea here is to have the right perspective about your work. Without the right biblical perspective about work, life and work can become monotonous and pointless and demotivating and defeating and empty and cynical. But what the writer of Ecclesiastes is saying is, because work is actually a gift of grace from God, given by God to you to meet your needs so that you are cared for. So if the curse resulted in more difficult work in gathering food to meet your need and to be sustained, a job given to you is actually a grace gift that God has given you to say, here's a way for you to take care of your needs. And so we should engage with that job, glory unto God. We engage with that work, right, as a response to grace. And we know the New Testament, Colossians and Ephesians, instruct a Christian to work unto your real and ultimate boss, Jesus Christ. So whether you're on campus or whether you're off campus, whether you're cleaning toilets or flipping burgers, We're called to work with gratitude and excellence as a response to the grace that we've received. So we want you to have a biblical philosophy of work. Secondly, the thing that we bring to this is a multi-layer leadership development program. So within the student employment structure and other areas, we're intentionally building in multi-layer leadership development. And so you'll hear me refer to L1, L2, and L3. And so L1 is simply the ability to lead yourself. Okay, so that is, in the work sense, that is the show up to work and do your job, perform your job and your tasks with efficiency. Be productive. L2 means that you have a responsibility over others. And so in the work setting, that usually translates to the responsibility on a particular night to oversee a particular shift. A subset or a subgroup of people that you have responsibility for. And then L3 is the responsibility to oversee an entire staff or team or group. So, for instance, right here in the rec center, you have membership services. And on any given night, starting on Wednesday, September 4th, we're going to have this place open, and it's going to be staffed with our students, entirely staffed with our students. Kara Brown is our team leader, our L3. And so she's overseeing all of the students. She's in charge of customer service and relations and some scheduling and things like that. She is coached by an L4, which would be a faculty or a staff member, right? And so Katie Raven oversees that. Kara Brown oversees that team. And then we have certain individuals who have shift responsibilities throughout the week. So on a Monday night, we might have somebody who has a shift responsibility. On Tuesday night, it might be a different person. And so in all of this, we are putting you in an experience-based learning position to have responsibility, and then as you grow, increase responsibility. And with every increased responsibility, there's another growth factor. Lastly, we have soft skills. So our soft skills those are the skills that you don't learn in the classroom. The classroom, they call them hard skills. That's usually connected with or a correlation to your major or your program. When we talk about soft skills, we call them learning objectives in the student employment world. Those are things, attributes that can be transferred or translated to any job you do. So I want to play a little game with you right now. We have enough people working here. I have underground cards, $5 underground cards. We have 7 learning objectives, all right? 7 soft skills. I want you to give me a soft skill. Raise your hand, Marilyn or Cassidy will come to you. I want you to give me a soft skill. If it's the right soft skill, I'll give you an underground card. All right? We have 7 of them. It's got to be pretty close, okay? Go ahead. You just pick somebody, Marilyn.
Achieve customer satisfaction.
You got to speak up.
Achieve customer satisfaction.
Customer satisfaction, that's 1. Here you go, Abby.
Dependability and reliability.
Dependability and reliability. Very good. Come on up, Morgan. Oh, Donald's going for it. What do you got for me, Donald?
Production.
Production in what?
Performance.
Very good. Come on up. Occupational production and performance.
Frank.
Oh, Hope.
Effective communication.
Effective communication. Come on up, Hope.
Team concept.
What's that?
Team concept.
Team concept. Come on up. How many is that? I lost track. I don't know. Maybe I have. I don't know how many I have. I know there's 1 missing. I know there's 2 missing. Luke has his hand up. Evan has his hand up. Oh.
Detail oriented.
Nope. Chad. You get half a card. Half a card, maybe. Luke.
Hi.
Oh. Jules.
Critical thinking and problem solving.
Critical thinking and problem solving. Okay. Erica, do you want to say one? All right, we'll skip that. Here you go, Jules. I'm so funny. All right, I think there's one more. No, man, get out of here. Who's got the last one?
Administration and organization.
You got it. All right, come on up, Heidi. All right, so those are the seven standard learning objectives that we have in student employment. So no matter where you work in student employment, whether you work custodial or membership services or security, they're all the same. And so, so we're working to bring you guys through these 7 key factors that we think are important for employment. You guys learn those, and they're translatable anywhere you go. So if you get out of here and you go for your first job interview, and they're going to ask you interview questions, you're going to be able to understand how to respond using those 7 soft skills or learning objectives. Okay? So we're doing this intentionally and purposely so that when you get out of here and you have a resume matched up with somebody else's resume, you will stand out. All right, so our vision for student employment is to bring the student employment program to all areas of campus employment. So there's still a few areas that we're not into yet, but we want to continue to move that. We want to partner with local businesses. They're going to be committed to developing our students with the same parameters of our student employment program. Now we haven't done that yet, but that's somewhere we want to go. I can't tell you how many applications we have for student employment this year, and we're not going to be able to employ every single person who applies. But if we can start working with local area businesses and we can partner with them on using the same type of development stuff, I think that we can employ students and have the same outcomes. We'd like to give every student continued opportunity to engage in career readiness. And so, here's the vision. The vision has become more clear in the past few months. We've had some changes in OSD, which has allowed us to free up some spots and to think differently about how we approach things and what we need to do to get into the future to have this stuff crystallized. And so one of the things that I am rejoicing over this past summer, is that Marilyn Luster, who's in the back there, if you know Marilyn, wave. There you go. You might know Marilyn because she worked in HR down in the business office. And so when Jeremy Yeckley resigned his part-time position up in career services to go to work for Foundations full-time, Marilyn and I got together, and it took us all of about 3 seconds to agree that she should fill that job. And so, what's that? 2 hours? I thought it was 3 seconds. I walked into your office and she said, "I want the job." And I said, "Well, yeah." So what Marilyn brings to the table for us is she has that HR experience. So she understands what the HR world is looking for in interviews, in resumes, and all that kind of stuff. She understands the paperwork. She understands the payroll stuff. And so part of the agreement for Marilyn coming up is that she is going to continue to serve as an HR liaison for our student employment program. One of our concerns was, we don't want you guys to apply for a job, interview for a job, get hired for a job, and then it takes us 3 weeks to onboard you. We want you to start quickly. And so Marilyn agreed to take that aspect with her up into OSD. And so Marilyn is actually onboarding all the students that we are hiring. Marilyn is also overseeing our federal work-study placement. And so last year felt like we ran into a couple of hiccups with federal work-study and placement there. This year we're working to get that more smooth and to have a better process, and so Marilyn's overseeing that as well. Marilyn is also overseeing some, if not all, of our custodial teams. So Marilyn and I will be partnering together to L4 our various custodial teams. We have 3 custodial teams on campus, one in Jackson Hall, one in the Rec Center, and one in the Phelps. And so Marilyn and I will be partnering to oversee those teams. And then, last but not least, Marilyn has overseen what we would call our career readiness chapels. And that's what we're a part of today. So while all of our first-year students are over in Jackson Hall in room 430, working through first-year experience stuff and getting them acclimated to college life, Marilyn and I were tasked with the assignment to figure out what we want to do with the remainder of our student body. And so when we sat down and we talked about it, we're in this position where we can actually advance our career readiness aspect. And so we talked about getting everybody together and moving our career readiness program forward and trying to give you guys some more stuff that's going to equip you to put you in a position to get a job when you leave this place. This place is supposed to be a good and safe place to learn how to work. So if you've worked with us and you have made mistakes, you understand that you're not hammered for the mistakes, you're not killed for the mistakes. We will talk to you about mistakes, right? But this is all part of a safe learning environment. Make the mistakes here before you make the mistakes out there. You make those mistakes out there, you might get fired. You make the mistakes here and you get critiqued and developed. And so we're going to bring some career readiness resources to you over the next 8 weeks in chapels. So I just want you to understand that this is our first go, and so I'm not afraid to experiment with stuff. I'm not afraid of failing. I don't want to fail, but we're not paralyzed by failure. I'm perfectly fine with rolling stuff out, operating in the chaos and the messiness, and seeing what happens. And so what we're asking this group of students to do is, hey, partner with us in this thing. We're going to roll this stuff out. Give us feedback. I don't expect it to be perfect, but I do want to hear some feedback. We do listen. We do value your opinion. And if there are things that we need to work on or change for the future, we will definitely consider that. Because we really want this to be effective for you. We don't put programs together for our sake. We're putting programs together for your sake. And if you understand my philosophy about programs, I am an administrative type of a person, but I'm not rigidly administrative in the sense that people do not serve programs. Programs serve people. And so we're putting a program together to serve you. And if it's not as effective, you got to let me know. And if there's ways that we can make it more effective, you got to let me know. So here's what you can expect. We're going to have some shared learning opportunities with the entire student body that's going to be driven from an academic perspective. So in there's going to be some stuff like advising and things like that. So one of the Thursdays, I think we're going to use that as an advising time. You'll meet with your advisors, or you'll meet in a program-specific or your major-specific area. So if you're health and phys ed, all the health and phys eds will meet together. If you're criminal justice, all of you will meet together. And so I think that's one of the aspects to the 8 weeks. Next week, we're going to have Dan Nichols here. Anybody familiar with Dan Nichols? Right? Dan is a very dynamic dude, and Dan is dynamic, and what he is doing, we thought matches up super well with his topic. And so Dan's going to be talking about networking. So we think that it's important for you guys to start learning networking skills so that you can begin to develop that so that when you leave here, you already have a network. Then we're going to talk about in 4 different settings. We're going to talk about cover letter writing. So that's very important because the first thing an employer is going to look at is your cover letter. If it's horrible, your resume is going in the garbage. They're not even going to get to it. Okay? So Linnell Buchanan is going to walk you through that. Marilyn Luster is going to do resume building and development. And so you've got to have a good resume that's going to stand out and be sharp. There's stuff that you don't want to put in a resume. There's stuff that you have to include in the resume. Dan King, do you know Daniel King? He works in our business office. He's our controller. He's going to do interview skills. One of the things that we realized here is when students come through and graduate, we oftentimes have jobs open, full-time jobs. And we will interview our own students because we believe that they understand how we operate and that they might be a good fit. What we learned in one of our departments is that students don't know how to interview. They came into the interview in our own institution and didn't know how to interview well. And so that's one of the things we're going to bring to you guys is how to conduct yourself in an interview. And then financial planning with Larry Ellis. Anybody know Larry Ellis? Let me tell you something about Larry Ellis. Larry Ellis is our new financial aid director. And so we have a group of ladies who know Larry Ellis very well. And Larry Ellis has already paid off massively for us in his new role. And so I appreciate Larry here. Larry is, I would say, a godsend to us. I look at Larry and I go, man, that dude is a gift from God in his position, because we needed a financial aid director, and we would have missed it had we not been interviewing Larry for something else. Our financial aid... Was I not supposed to say that? No. We were interviewing Larry for something else. Our financial aid director quit, and then we saw that Larry had massive financial aid experience and actually is very, very good at it. So I'm very thankful for that dude. And then we're gonna culminate our weeks on Community Appreciation Day. And so we're gonna get out there into the community, and we're gonna put things that we learn into practice. We're gonna work in our community and show Jesus Christ and show people in our community that we are Christ-centered, career-ready. All right? So thanks for your attention this morning. We're going to work hard to continue to develop this program. We love you, and I absolutely mean that. We want you to develop. We want you to get out of here and have good jobs that provide you with ministry opportunities. And so hang on. It's going to be a fun ride. Pray for you for the semester. Pray for you for energy. Pray for your learning and development, and we'll see what happens over these next 8 weeks. So, Lord, thank you. Thank you for this time. Thank you that we have this period on Thursdays to experiment. And, Father, we're praying that you go ahead of us and help us to see just how we should develop this further. Thank you for these students and their willingness to engage. I pray, Father, that we would serve them well, and that you will help us to see the areas that we've done well at with them. Help us to see the areas that we have not done well. Help me to see the areas where we can expand our vision. Lord, go before us into the community, and I just pray that you'll create opportunities for us with businesses so that we can get into those businesses with our students and give them employment opportunities so that they can take care of their needs while they're in school and that they can learn in a safe way. And Father, I pray for these students that you would energize them, strengthen them, protect them, give them the grace that is found in Jesus Christ to sustain this year. And Father, we look forward to the great things you're going to do. I pray for these students that as we interact with them, as we share the gospel, as we speak about things of grace, that their hearts would well up, that their skills would increase, that their knowledge would increase, that their desire would increase, and that they would leave here on fire for Jesus Christ, for your glory and for the advancement of the kingdom. And we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good day.